So a lot of people are interested in how you negotiate effectively, and there's a lot of great stuff out there on it. I kind of have learned the whole thing through trial by fire, and so I'm going to share 3 things that I've experienced recently, like in the last 30 days or so, in negotiating that I think can be helpful to you when you're doing stuff. So the first one is, if there is something that is kind of being used as a leverage point against you, they're saying, well, I've agreed to your price, or, well, I didn't do this, I didn't negotiate against you, or whatever. If somebody's got something that they're trying to position as a favor that they did in the negotiation, or a favor that they've done, and that is supposed to create some negotiating leverage for them, then is there a way to remove that from the equation? So I'll give you an example. We were sitting in a boardroom talking about a deal to sell a company. And part of the prior deal on a different company that we'd sold to the same party was one where we did a contract to provide some services and stuff. So they had gone through some challenges, pandemic related, and we're having the conversation, and they said, we can't do the deal that you want, but we still would like for you guys to continue to perform and do the things that you've been doing. And there wasn't really any reason for us to do, there wasn't any pay or anything like that. We were doing it to kind of help the deal. But they said it like 3 or 4 times, and my initial reaction was, what do you mean you're thinking about, because they had a right to buy us out of the old deal. And they were like, the valuation now is low, and so we've been buying a lot of people out of deals, but we're not going to buy you out of the deal. We're going to keep you in. And that was kind of a thing that they were doing for us. And I know that they thought that that was a favor they were doing for us, but also it was being used, even if it was subconsciously, as a negotiating chip, a negotiating tactic. And so they're like, but we're not buying you out. We're not buying you out. And so I thought about it for a minute, and I went from, outrage, like, you're definitely not going to buy me out. I couldn't have stopped it, to I said, you know what? If I were you, I'd buy me out. You should buy me out. You should buy us both. You should just get us out of that deal. And they were like, what, wait a minute, what? And so it interrupted the whole pattern of how the negotiation was going. And then I said, you should buy us out because that deal is done. I've got a different deal that I want to propose. And if you do that buyout, then all of the things that we had done before are off the table. All of the people that were involved in those deals that aren't doing anything and haven't done anything for 5 years are out of the deal, etc. And then let's do a new deal. And it kind of changed the whole feeling of what was going on, because now I've taken away the chip of reciprocity of doing us the favor, the chip that was kind of being, maybe, like I said, unintentionally or maybe brilliantly being held over our head. It was a good strategy, but I just took it all away. And if you can do that, if you can think on your feet when somebody's got something like that, how do I take that chip away so that I'm not beholding to them and I haven't used any negotiating capital? And in fact, what I did by saying you should buy me out, I would if I were you. I was like, I'm kind of looking out for your interest too, because it was true. It's against my interest to be bought out, but I have a plan beyond this one step. And that goes to something I've talked about a couple times. If you haven't watched the movie, catch me if you can. In that movie, Leonardo DiCaprio, as I think Frank McCourt is the guy that he plays, I think he was teaching law school, and the investigators came in and they're like, you have no law training. You don't know how to practice law. How the heck are you teaching this to people who are in law school? And he's like, man, all I have to do is be 1 chapter ahead of the class to teach the course. And that goes to pretty much everything in business. You need to be able to be 1 chapter ahead of the people you're negotiating with to have a bigger vision. You need to be more creative. You need to be thinking, how do I use every single bit of opportunity to get to something that will help both people? And so in that scenario I gave you, I took away something that was negative for us, but it let me do something for the people on the other side that was good for them, and give them permission to do something that was good for them that might have been perceived by them as too aggressive. And so then they got to do the thing they wanted to do, and I got to do the thing that I wanted to do. But it was by staying ahead, right? So that's thing 1. Thing 2 is shut the heck up, right? Now, how do we implement that? There is nothing more painful to the average human being than moments of silence in a conversation between 2 people, especially in a negotiation, because people get into a rhythm. When you're an attorney and you're taking somebody's deposition and you're asking them questions, if you want them to give you information that they don't want to give you, the strategy that you use is to get into a rhythm of exchange. And that is that you start asking a question and they give an answer. And then you ask another question and they give another answer, and so on and so on. But each time your question comes a little little sooner. Like it comes right on the heels of their answer. And then it comes just as they're almost finishing their answer. So you build up a momentum that is faster than they can think, so that their answers are coming from their unconscious memory instead of from conscious filtering to give you the thing that is going to be in their best interest. So what that means is that if you get into that rhythm and that momentum, it can be very bad for you, because you may say something just to horse trade back and give away something you don't have to give away. So you always want to give the other side the ability to let it sink in, whatever you're saying, whatever you're asking for, and shut the heck up, right? And I'll give you an example in a deal that we just did. There was a negotiation about a buy-in value in a consulting for equity deal. There's a company that had done 7 figures in revenue, 7 figures in profit, and we were coming in to provide consulting and get equity in exchange for that. But the people on the other side of the deal said, well, that's cool, but obviously there's going to be a buy-in. And I don't want to buy in. I don't want to pay anything for that. And so I basically laid out for them, I said, well, listen, for this reason and this reason and this reason, it really ought to be 0. And then I didn't say anything. So let me give it to you live, just so you can feel the pain. Picture that you have the company, right? On that deal that we're talking about, I've looked at it, I've thought about it, we kind of ran through, but there are 3 things that are really a big problem. There's this one, and this one. And so really, honestly, I think the buy-in should be 0. Doesn't that feel painful, right? That led to them saying the next thing. That led to an agreement that was the case, right? That shut the heck up changes everything for you. It is so powerful. Just don't say anything. The next one, I think Nancy Reagan used to have a just say no to drugs campaign. So I'm going to call this the just say no. So another negotiation we're doing, another 7-figure company, 7-figure profit company, consulting for equity deal. And I'm having a conversation. Now I was negotiating against my business partner who had already had a conversation with him, by the way, and said, okay, yeah, so it looks like we should probably pay $2.5 million for our interest in that company. So I'm going in to a deal where my business partner has already said, we'll pay $2.5 million, and I need to make that 0. That's freaking hard, okay? So have the conversation, really go into the benefits, talk about why this deal makes sense, talk about why it doesn't make sense for us to do the 2.5. And the seller comes back and the seller goes, yeah, I mean, I understand all that, but I really need to get, listen to all the words. I really need to get some money up front. Well, okay, well, tell me about that. I mean, as I see it, like, I don't think the business really needs any capital right now, does it? No, it's just, I want, okay? I went from my need to I want. Okay, so, all right, well, I mean, I just don't really see that makes sense, because if you take money off the table, even, if we were put money in and then you take money off the table, I mean, the worst case, you'd want to maybe put money in and leave it, but the company doesn't need any, right? He's like, yeah, it's just that I would like to, now he's gone from need to want to like. 3 different levels of intensity, right? So we know we're moving in the right direction. You always want to be attuned to that. So I really like to get some money. I was like, I totally get it, and I would love to give it to you. It just doesn't make sense right here. I think we just go forward and we can look at, we've looked at the different deal points. We've agreed to all these things, but I just don't really see any capital up front, and I don't really see any cash coming to you immediately, because you don't need it and the company doesn't need it, and it's just not the best thing. And we did a deal, right? So those 3 things, right? Just say no, shut the heck up, stay 1 chapter ahead, and that's going to help you with your negotiations more than anything else I could tell you.